The rain came down in relentless sheets over Portland that night, turning every street into a shimmering river of reflections and neon, as Ava Collins hurried across the parking lot of the 24-hour market, clutching the thin jacket around her shoulders while trying to ignore the sting of cold drops soaking through the sleeves. She had finished another late shift rearranging shelves that never stayed neat long enough, and her hands still carried the faint smell of cardboard and detergent. But what bothered her more was the small truth she could not escape when she opened her wallet inside the staff room earlier and counted exactly $5 remaining. That last bill was supposed to be for a loaf of bread that her younger sister Lily loved, the soft kind with honey wheat that felt like a small comfort in a life that did not offer many. Ava tucked the bill safely into her pocket as she stepped toward the dimly lit bus stop, but stopped short when she noticed someone huddled under the flickering street lamp. A man sat on the cold metal bench, his clothes soaked through and clinging to him like a second skin while his hair dripped water onto the pavement. His hands trembled as he held an empty wallet open, staring at the inside as if hoping something might magically appear. His phone lay beside him, black screen dead. A group of teenagers nearby recorded him on their phones and laughed loudly, shouting comments that cut through the rain. "Bro cannot even afford a bus ticket," one of them said, shaking the phone at his friends. "Look at him, sitting there like a lost stray," another chimed in. Ava felt the familiar twist of discomfort in her chest, the one she always felt when she saw cruelty where compassion should be. She glanced back toward the store where a loaf of bread waited inside, but then her eyes returned to the man on the bench who seemed smaller than his frame, suggested someone who had folded inward from cold and exhaustion. She hesitated for 2 breaths, then walked toward him, ignoring the rain dripping off her hair and into her collar. The teenagers paused their mockery long enough to stare at her with amused confusion, as if curious why anyone would approach a broken stranger in a storm. Ava stopped in front of the man and crouched slightly to meet his eyes. "Are you all right, sir?" she asked, her voice steady, though her stomach nodded at the idea of parting with her last piece of security. He looked up slowly, revealing eyes that held a mixture of apology and disbelief, as if he had not expected kindness in a long time. "I just need $2.75 for the bus," he said quietly, his voice strained from shivering. "I lost my wallet and my phone died. I promise I am not trying to cause trouble." Ava reached into her pocket and pulled out the $5 bill, feeling its thin paper warmth between her fingers. Behind her, one of the teenagers snorted loudly. "You are broke too. Why help?" That comment hit its mark, but Ava pressed the bill into the man's cold hands anyway. "Here," she said gently. "This will cover it." His fingers closed around the bill as if he feared it might disappear. He stared at her for a long, silent moment, rain sliding down his face like tears that were not tears. "Thank you," he murmured softly. "You just changed my night." The teenagers lost interest and wandered off, bored that their video did not end in drama. The man stood slowly and gave her a nod of gratitude before stepping toward the arriving bus. Ava watched as he boarded, disappearing into the dim interior without looking back. When the doors closed, she felt the tug of worry in her chest. That was her last money until the next paycheck. Bread would have to wait. She started walking the long route home, her shoes splashing through puddles soaking her socks until her feet felt numb. She reminded herself that she still had a roof over her head, at least for now, and that Lily would understand if dinner was simple tonight. Across the street, unseen by Ava, a security camera outside a corner shop captured the entire moment the soaked stranger. The cruel laughter, the quiet gift of $5, and the man turning once to look at Ava through the rain before he vanished into the bus. Ava pulled her jacket tighter as the wind rose and the city lights blurred in the storm. She did not know that the smallest choice of her hardest night had already begun rearranging the path of her life in ways she could never imagine. Ava reached her apartment building just after midnight, the rain easing into a mist that clung to her clothes as she climbed the exterior stairs of the aging 3-story complex where paint peeled from the railings and porch lights buzzed weakly as though exhausted from trying to stay alive in the damp Oregon air. She fumbled with her keys and pushed open the door as quietly as possible, hoping not to wake her younger sister. but Lily was already sitting at the small kitchen table wrapped in a faded blanket with worry in her eyes that she tried but failed to hide. "You are late again," she whispered, her voice soft and thin from a long day inside the cramped apartment. Ava forced a smile, though her mind still replayed the bus stop, the soaked stranger, the $5 leaving her hand like a sacrifice. "Just a long shift," she said, brushing damp hair from her face. "Did you eat?" Lily asked, trying to sound casual, but Ava noticed the way her gaze flicked toward the counter where the bread should have been. Ava nodded, though she had not eaten since noon, and her stomach ached in protest. "I will get groceries tomorrow after work," she added quickly. But Lily reached for something on the table, a thin white envelope marked in bold print. This came earlier. Ava felt her pulse spike as she took it, opening it slowly, dreading what she already knew. The letter from the apartment management was blunt. "Notice: to vacate if full payment of overdue rent is not received within 5 days, the unit will be reclaimed under building policy." Lily watched her reading and said, "I can get more hours at the center, maybe do some evening shifts." "You cannot," Ava replied immediately too sharply, then softened her tone. "Your health comes first, you know that." Lily looked down, twisting the blanket in her hands while Ava folded the letter and tried to steady her breathing. The overdue amount was significant, more than she could hope to gather in less than a week, especially with her hours at the market cut again. She could not tell Lily that Brenda, the new manager, had posted the shift schedule that morning with another reduction for Ava, and a warning scribbled beside her name about tardiness even though she had never been late. Ava pushed the letter aside and forced another smile. "We will figure it out. We always do," but even she did not believe the words. While Lily settled back into her room, Ava walked to the small window and stared out at the streetlights streaking gold across the wet pavement. She imagined the soaked man from earlier stepping off the bus somewhere warmer, maybe with someone waiting for him, unlike her and Lily, who only had each other. Her own reflection in the window showed tired eyes, dark circles, and hair frizzed from the storm, but beneath that, she saw determination born from years of scraping by. She could survive one more crisis. She had survived worse. The next morning, she trudged through gray drizzle toward the market where automatic doors slid open with a tired sigh. Brenda was already inside, clipboard in hand, lips pursed as though the entire store carried a personal offense. Before Ava could even set down her bag, Brenda called across the aisle, "Ava, Collins, in my office." The tone alone was enough to draw glances from customers and employees. Ava followed slowly, bracing herself. Inside the tiny office, Brenda tapped her pen against the desk. "I have reviewed your performance," she began in a rehearsed voice, "and I am disappointed. You left your station last night without permission." Ava blinked, confused. "I was helping a customer who needed assistance," Brenda huffed. "It is not your role to wander around the store playing hero. If you want to keep your position, you need to follow instructions." Ava swallowed hard. The humiliation stung especially because 2 employees lingered outside the office pretending to restock shelves while clearly listening. When she stepped out, Brenda announced loudly for everyone to hear, "Kindness will not pay your rent, Ava." The words hit like a slap, making Ava's cheeks flush. She lowered her gaze and returned to her station, silently stacking cereal boxes while trying to ignore the giggles from teenagers nearby. Every hour dragged like a weight. At lunch, she checked her bank balance and saw numbers that tightened her stomach. She calculated $12 in checking and nothing pending until next week. Buying bread tonight was impossible. She sighed and headed back to the aisle, planning to ask for extra shifts, though she already knew Brenda would refuse. As she turned the corner, she ran into Jason, the stockroom clerk, and Brenda's boyfriend, who leaned against a shelf with a smug smirk. "Heard the boss lady gave you another warning," he said. "Maybe try staying in your lane. People like you do not belong near people like him." Ava stiffened, feeling anger flare, but she bit back a response for the sake of her job. Jason chuckled and walked away, leaving her standing alone in the fluorescent aisle surrounded by the hum of refrigerators and the muted chatter of customers. She felt the weight of the eviction notice, the empty wallet, the cutting words from her coworkers all stacking on top of her, but she refused to let herself crumble. She finished her shift, hands numb from cold tasks, and made her way home through the drizzle again with no bread, but carrying the stubborn hope that tomorrow might be kinder. Little did she know that tomorrow would not simply be kinder. It would be the day everything in her life shifted in a way she could never have predicted. Morning settled over Portland with a pale, watery light that seeped through clouds still heavy from the night's storm as Ava pushed her cart down aisle 7 of the market restocking canned goods and trying to pretend she did not feel the eyes of Brenda trailing her every move like a shadow waiting for the smallest mistake. Her stomach was tight from skipping breakfast, and her mind kept drifting back to the eviction notice on the kitchen table at home, but she forced herself to focus on aligning labels so perfectly that even Brenda could not find fault. The store was unusually busy for early hours, customers weaving through aisles with steaming coffees in hand, while soft music played overhead. Ava was lifting a box of soup cans when she noticed something odd. Several customers near the front entrance had stopped moving altogether, their attention fixed on something outside. The sliding doors opened and the atmosphere inside shifted instantly, as if someone had turned down the volume of the world. A man in a dark suit stepped in, followed by 2 assistants holding tablets, then a camera operator who scanned the store with sharp eyes. Behind them came another suited figure, and then a third. A low murmur rippled across the market. Who are they? Are they filming something? Did we get new management? Ava stayed where she was, heart tapping a nervous beat against her ribs. She recognized the first man's silhouette before she saw his face, and the realization hit her so fast she nearly dropped the can in her hand. It was him, the stranger from last night, the man shivering at the bus stop. Wallet, empty, phone, dead the man she had given her last $5. But this was not the same soaked, exhausted stranger she remembered. This man stood tall, shoulders squared presence commanding the room, the way only people accustomed to authority ever could. His hair, now neatly styled, caught hints of morning light, his coat looked tailored and immaculate, and there was nothing fragile or lost about him. He looked like someone important. Very important. Whispers followed him down the aisle as he scanned the store with an expression that was calm, yet searching. Brenda nearly sprinted across the floor, wearing a smile so forced it looked painful. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to Evergreen Market," she chirped, putting herself directly in his path. "My name is Brenda, store manager. If you need anything at all, I will personally take care of you." The man barely glanced at her, his eyes focused on something beyond her shoulder. "Actually, I am looking for someone," he said, voice smooth but certain. Something in his tone made several employees freeze mid-step. Ava's pulse hammered harder. She did not want attention, not from strangers, not from people like Brenda, not from anyone. She stepped back deeper into the aisle, hoping he would not see her, but the man's gaze swept across the shelves like a precise, slow search until his eyes locked onto hers. For a heartbeat, they just stared at each other, the noise of the store fading into a quiet she felt down to her bones. Then he spoke. "I am looking for the woman who helped me last night." The words were loud enough for several customers to turn. Brenda's smile cracked. The employees behind her whispered furiously. Someone nudged a coworker. That girl Ava from canned goods. Brenda's face drained of color. "You must be mistaken, sir," she said quickly, stepping in front of him, blocking his line of sight. "I assure you, none of my employees would have been out that late. She is probably confusing her with someone else." The man turned to Brenda with a calmness that cut like ice. "I am not confusing anything." He looked back at Ava, and though she wanted to shrink into the shelves, she found herself frozen in place. "Could you come here for a moment?" he asked, gently but firmly directed at Ava. Brenda sputtered, but the man walked around her without hesitation, heading straight toward Ava, who stood rooted to the floor, unable to move as her world tilted. Customers stepped back instinctively, creating a small path as he approached. Brenda rushed after him, hissing under her breath. "Sir, please let me explain our policies," but he ignored her entirely. When he reached Ava, he offered a small, polite nod. "Good morning," he said. as if they were old acquaintances meeting by chance. "I did not properly thank you last night." Ava felt heat rise to her face while every pair of eyes in the store glued themselves to the two of them. She struggled to find her voice. It was nothing she managed, though her hands trembled slightly. "I just helped because anyone would have." His lips curved in a small, knowing smile. "Not anyone." He glanced briefly at the camera operator shadowing him as if remembering they were being filmed. Brenda stepped forward again, voice sharp with panic. "Sir, if you would like to make a donation or discuss a partnership for our store, we can schedule a meeting in my office. But please do not feel obliged to interact with staff on duty." The man's expression hardened and he straightened to his full height. "My name is Ethan Cole," he said clearly enough that the entire front half of the market heard. People gasped. Ethan Cole of Cole Energy Tech, the clean energy startup appearing in every local news channel for cutting-edge innovations, the youngest CEO in the region, known for sudden, unannounced visits to field locations. Even Brenda's jaw dropped. Ethan continued, "And this woman," he nodded at Ava, "is the only person last night who treated me like a human being." Silence swept the store so complete that even the checkout scanners seemed to pause. Ethan held out a simple business card, its silver lettering catching the fluorescent lights. "If you ever need anything, call me." Ava stared at the card but did not reach for it, too stunned to process the surreal moment unfolding. Ethan did not withdraw his hand. Instead, he waited as though offering her something far more significant than a card. Behind him, the camera operator zoomed in, catching every detail, the crowd pressing closer, whispering about the mysterious girl who helped a billionaire without realizing it. Brenda clenched her fists, face pale with shock. Ava finally forced her hand to move, fingers closing around the card lightly as if it might vanish. "Thank you," she whispered because it was the only thing she could think of. Ethan nodded once, then stepped back, giving her space even under the weight of dozens of staring eyes. "I will be in touch," he said softly before turning away. As he left with his team following behind, every customer and employee watched in stunned silence, including Ava, who stood motionless at the end of aisle 7, realizing that her quiet life built on almost nothing had just collided with a world she never imagined would even notice her. For several long seconds after Ethan Cole disappeared down the aisle, Ava remained frozen, gripping the business card so tightly the edges pressed into her palm while her thoughts spun like loose paper in a storm. The store had fallen into a hush so unnatural for a weekday morning that even the air felt heavier. Customers whispered behind hands peeking over shelves while employees clustered near checkout pretending to organize displays but clearly doing nothing except staring at her. Brenda was the first to break the silence. She marched toward Ava heels, clicking sharply against the tile, her face stretched into a tight, controlled smile that did not reach her eyes. "Ava, we need to talk," she said through gritted teeth. "In my office. Now." Ava swallowed hard and nodded, though her legs felt unsteady beneath her. She followed Brenda toward the tiny back room, feeling dozens of eyes burning into her back. Before they reached the door, Jason stepped out from the stockroom, smirking like someone watching a slow-motion disaster. "So, that is your new boyfriend, huh?" he sneered. "Figures. People like you are always looking for someone to rescue you." Ava stiffened but said nothing, not trusting her voice. Brenda shot Jason a glare that meant "shut up," but he only shrugged, leaning against the shelf. Inside the cramped office, Brenda closed the door and folded her arms. Her anger was a barely controlled simmer. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" she demanded, leaning closer. "You embarrassed this store in front of cameras. You made me look incompetent. You talked to him without authorization." Ava blinked, confused. "He talked to me," she said slowly. "I did not do anything." Brenda scoffed. "Ethan Cole does not walk into grocery stores asking for low-level employees for fun. Clearly, you must have done something. And whatever it was cannot happen again." Ava felt indignation spark beneath her ribs. "I gave him $5 last night," she said before she could stop herself. "I did not know who he was. He needed help." Brenda went silent for a beat, then laughed in disbelief. You gave money to a stranger. She shook her head sharply. This is exactly what I mean. You act without thinking, and now look what is happening. Ava's jaw tightened, but she stayed quiet, focusing instead on the card in her hand, its silver letters catching the dim office light. Brenda leaned in. Listen to me carefully. If he contacts you, you come to me first. You do not make decisions on your own. You do not represent this store. Understood? Ava felt a cold, heavy stone settle in her stomach, but she nodded once simply to end the conversation. When she stepped out, Jason was waiting, leaning against the wall, arms crossed. He stared at her with narrowed eyes. People like you do not belong near people like him, he repeated slowly, emphasizing each word like a warning. Ava brushed past him, refusing to let his bitterness stick to her skin. She returned to her aisle, trying to steady her breathing, but customers kept approaching her, whispering, Did he really say you helped him last night, or is he coming back, or, oh my goodness, honey, what happened? And Ava felt her cheeks heating with each question. She wanted nothing more than to disappear into the stockroom and pretend her life was still simple. That illusion vanished when Ethan returned half an hour later. This time he walked straight toward her, Brenda scrambling behind him trying to keep up. Ethan stopped in front of Ava, offering a polite, reassuring smile. I realize I did not properly introduce myself, he said gently, as though speaking only to her despite the ring of curious onlookers forming behind him. My name is Ethan Cole, and you saved me last night. The words echoed through the market, hitting with the weight of truth and pride and something else, something unexpected that tightened Ava's chest. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Ethan continued as though sensing she needed space. I had just come from an emergency meeting, he explained, voice calm but earnest. The company is dealing with a potential hostile takeover, and in the chaos I lost my wallet and my phone died. I was stranded in the rain for almost an hour. People walked by, some even laughed. You did not. Ava shifted uncomfortably under the intensity of his sincerity. Anyone would have helped, she replied quietly. Ethan shook his head. That is not true. Most people did not, and paused, letting the weight of that sink in. But you did without hesitation, and that meant more than you know. Brenda suddenly inserted herself between them, her smile brittle. Mr. Cole, if you would like to schedule a meeting with corporate about public relations partnerships, I can arrange something immediately. Ethan did not even glance at her. Actually, I came back for her, he said plainly, pointing slightly toward Ava. The room collectively gasped. Jason stepped closer, scowl deepening. Why her? He muttered loud enough for several people to hear. Ethan looked over at him with a cool, measured expression. Excuse me? Jason puffed up his chest. I mean, she is just a shelf stalker. People like her do not exactly mix with people like you. Ethan's jaw tightened and Ava felt dread coil inside her stomach. Ethan stepped forward, voice unwavering. What exactly does that mean? Jason faltered but continued. It means she is out of your league, sir. Someone like you should not waste time on someone who does not belong in your world. Ethan gave a slow, controlled breath, then turned to the watching crowd. Everyone belongs in my world, he said firmly, if they lead with compassion. The silence that followed was electric. Jason went pale. Brenda looked ready to faint, and several customers murmured agreement. Ethan turned back to Ava, softening once more. I do not want to disrupt your day, he said, but I needed you to know that your kindness mattered. He extended a small card again, not businesslike this time, more personal. If you ever need anything at all, call me. He held her gaze a moment longer, then nodded, acknowledging something unspoken between them before stepping away. As he left the store, the camera operator filmed the exit, and customers murmured excitedly, already pulling out phones to record where he went, who he spoke to, and what it all meant. Social media would explode by afternoon. Ava felt it deep in her bones. She stared at the card in her hand, the silver letters feeling heavier than the $5 she gave away the night before. Ethan Cole, CEO, billionaire innovator, had walked into her dull, fluorescent world, and for reasons she did not yet understand had chosen to step into hers. The air inside the store felt strangely charged, as if every fluorescent light hummed a little louder and every shopper held their breath waiting to understand what they had just witnessed. Ava stood frozen near the end cap of canned goods, her hands trembling slightly around the handle of the cart she had been restocking. A man she had met for only 30 seconds in the rain. The man she had given her last $5 to without expecting anything in return had just walked into her workplace, surrounded by cameras and assistants, and declared that he was looking for her. She barely had time to process this before he returned, now walking straight toward her as customers parted like waves around him, whispering non-stop. Brenda rushed after him, so flustered her usually perfect bun seemed to wobble. Ethan slowed when he reached her, and for a moment the noise of the store seemed to fade, like someone had turned down the volume of the world. His voice was warm, steady, and more human than she expected from someone whose presence filled the room like a force of nature. "I did not introduce myself properly this morning," he said, his gaze gentle but focused entirely on her. "My name is Ethan Cole, and you saved me last night." The sentence landed heavily inside Ava, almost knocking the breath out of her. She shook her head instinctively. "I did not save anyone," she whispered. "You just needed a little help. That is all." Ethan looked at her with a mixture of disbelief and appreciation. "It was not a little help," he said quietly. "I was stranded for 40 minutes. No wallet, no phone, no one wanting to stop. And then you did." He paused long enough for Ava to feel the sincerity, the weight of truth in his words. "You helped me when I had nothing to offer in return." Brenda suddenly stepped between them, smiling too brightly. "Mr. Cole, welcome to our store. If you would like to speak with our corporate office, I can schedule an immediate call or arrange a private meeting room," she said, trying desperately to redirect his attention. Ethan did not bother to look at her. "Actually, I am here for Ava," he said firmly. That single sentence rippled across the store like a shockwave. One customer gasped loudly. Another pulled out her phone, whispering into the camera. "This is insane. He came for her." Jason, who had been watching from behind a rack of potato chips, scoffed loudly and stepped forward. "Seriously," he said, pointing toward Ava. She is a shelf stalker, man. Why would you need someone like her?" Ethan turned toward Jason, slowly, brows slightly knit. "Someone like her? What does that mean?" Jason lifted his chin, puffed up by the attention. "Come on, man. You are a billionaire CEO. She is just some broke girl in a grocery store. People like her do not belong in your world." Ava felt her stomach drop, humiliation burning her insides, but she stayed still, hoping the floor would swallow her. Ethan, however, seemed to grow taller, his expression sharpening with a calm intensity that silenced everyone around them. "The only thing that separates our worlds," Ethan said softly, "is how we choose to treat people. And yesterday she chose kindness when no one else did." Jason paled but tried one more jab. "She probably just wanted attention or money." Ethan cut him off with a single look. "She did not ask for anything, not even my name." That is what made her stand out. Brenda jumped in again, her voice tight with panic. "Mr. Cole, if she violated store policy, we assure you we will handle it. We pride ourselves on maintaining professionalism here." Ethan finally turned to Brenda. "She was the only person last night who acted like a human being," he said. "If that violates your policy, perhaps you should consider changing it." Customers murmured agreement, some nodding, others filming openly. Brenda's face reddened an uncomfortable shade of purple as she stepped back. Ethan returned his focus to Ava, once more softening instantly. "I know this is overwhelming," he said, "but I came back because gratitude should be shown, not just felt." He gently reached into his pocket and offered her a card, its surface cool metallic catching the overhead light. "This is my direct line. If you ever need anything, help, advice, a reference, anything, call me." Ava stared at the card, hesitating. "I do not want to be a burden," she whispered, voice cracking slightly. Ethan's expression softened as if the idea itself pained him. "You are not a burden," he said. "People like you remind people like me why our companies exist in the first place. She looked up, meeting his eyes for a brief second, and in that moment she saw something unexpected. Not pity, but respect, recognition, and maybe even a flicker of something deeper, something that unsettled and warmed her all at once. Before she could respond, a few customers approached cautiously, asking Ethan for selfies. He politely declined, saying, "Maybe another time, Sue. Right now, I am here for something important." He gave her one last small nod and walked toward the exit, disappearing with his assistants and the small camera crew, leaving the entire store buzzing like a hive hit with a spark of electricity. When the automatic doors closed behind him, Brenda spun around, her eyes wide with a fury she barely contained. "My office," she hissed at Ava. "Now," but Ava hardly heard her. She stood still, holding the card, feeling its weight as if it were more than metal, more than paper, something that might change everything, or at least something she had lost long ago. Hope. Ava felt the shift before she fully understood it, a tightening of atmosphere inside the store, as if the fluorescent lights themselves had leaned closer, waiting for her next move. The card from Ethan Cole lay in her apron pocket, a thin piece of metal that suddenly made her feel visible in a way she had never asked to be. And visibility inside a place like this did not come as a blessing. It came as a threat. The moment she stepped out of Brenda's office, whispers followed her like shadows sliding behind cereal boxes and freezer doors. Employees paused mid-task, customers glanced over with curiosity and something sharper. Some even pulled out phones, hoping to capture anything for social media. Ava kept her head down, returning to her aisle, but it was impossible to blend in now. Brenda emerged from her office a minute later, her expression cold enough to frost glass. "Attention," everyone, she called loudly, timing her voice so customers would hear. "Due to earlier disruptions, we are reinforcing policy today. No employee leaves their designated station without written permission." Her eyes cut directly to Ava. "For any reason." Jason smirked from across the aisle, arms crossed as though he had been waiting for this. Several employees exchanged uneasy glances, but no one dared challenge Brenda, not with her reputation for cutting hours or making schedules unbearable. Ava felt heat creep up her neck, but she said nothing, reminding herself she needed this job, she needed the paycheck, she needed the roof. She kept stacking cans in perfect lines, her hands steady even as her chest tightened. 10 minutes later, Brenda approached again, this time with calculated theatrics. "Ava, a customer reported you left your area earlier." "I already explained what happened," Ava said quietly. "I was helping someone carry a heavy grocery bag." Brenda widened her eyes in mock innocence. "Oh, helping," she said loudly enough for nearby shoppers to hear. "That is adorable, but like I said, kindness does not pay rent." The words slapped hard and sharp. Two teenagers overheard and snickered, whispering something Ava could not quite make out. She bit the inside of her cheek, fighting the sting behind her eyes. Brenda was not finished. "Since you seem to have trouble following simple rules," she added, "we will have to adjust your duties." She pulled out her clipboard, scribbling dramatically. "Effective immediately, you will clean the front windows, restock the freezer, and sweep the parking lot." "That is 3 roles," Ava said, confused. Brenda lifted her chin. "Then consider it a chance to prove yourself. If you cannot handle that, there are plenty of people who need work." Ava swallowed the rising frustration. She needed to keep this job for Lily, for rent, for groceries. She forced a nod and moved to the freezer aisle, bracing herself for the cold sting that hit her fingers as she began restocking frozen vegetables. Several customers recognized her from earlier, whispering, "She is the girl the CEO came for." Or, why would he visit her? And with each comment, the invisible weight grew heavier. When she finished, she grabbed the broom and stepped outside the automatic doors, where the December air bit through her thin jacket. Leaves littered the concrete alongside crushed receipts and forgotten wrappers. She swept slowly, methodically, telling herself it was just another task, just another day, just another problem to survive. A car pulled up beside the entrance, and Jason leaned out the open window, smirk carved ugly across his face. "You know, Brenda is right," he called. Guys like him do not look twice at girls like you. You should have stayed in your lane." Ava tightened her grip on the broom, fighting the urge to respond. But Jason was the kind of man who thrived on causing bruises you could not see. Another employee. Becky approached, carrying a bag of trash, and whispered apologetically, "I am sorry, Ava. Brenda has been in a mood ever since he ignored her. She is taking it out on you." Ava nodded, grateful for even a sliver of kindness in the storm. "It is okay," she whispered. "It is not okay," Becky said softly. "You did something good last night, and somehow that made you a threat." The truth of those words cut deeper than any insult. After sweeping the entrance, Ava returned inside where Brenda was waiting, arms crossed. "You took too long," she said. "Customers were asking for assistance while you wandered outside." "I assigned you the parking lot," Ava replied, keeping her tone neutral. "I did it." Brenda smirked. "Then you should move faster." She placed a hand on her hip, leaning closer. "Look, Ava, people like you always think good deeds get rewarded. But they do not. Not in real life. Do your job, keep your head down, and stop expecting miracles." Ava felt something inside her crack a small, delicate thing she usually protected with stubborn hope. She forced a quiet, "I understand," but her voice quivered. That was all Brenda needed to feel victorious. She walked off heels, tapping triumphantly against the tile. Ava returned to her aisle, barely noticing the products around her, her mind replaying the humiliation in a continuous loop. Every time she blinked, she saw the cruel twist of Brenda's mouth, the sneer in Jason's voice, the teenagers laughing, the customers staring the unspoken judgment. Kindness had made her a target. But as she restocked another shelf, she felt the cool edge of Ethan's card through her apron, reminding her of something else. Something she could not yet name, but something that felt like possibility. The aisle suddenly seemed too small, too cold, too suffocating. She stepped away for a breath, then stopped when a voice behind her said quietly, "You okay?" She turned to see an older customer, a woman with kind eyes. "You look like someone who has carried too much for too long," the woman added. Ava forced a small smile. "Just a rough day." The woman nodded knowingly. Sometimes rough days lead to good tomorrows. "Sweetie?" Ava remembered the rain, the soaked stranger, the last $5 she had left, the way he looked at her with gratitude so genuine it warmed her under the storm. She clung to that memory like a lifeline. She finished her shift in silence, walking home slowly under the heavy gray Portland sky, each step echoing with exhaustion and something deeper. Fear. Because kindness had cost her everything she had left, and she had no idea what tomorrow would bring. But tomorrow was already coming, and it was coming fast. Ava reached her apartment just past 7, the December sky already dark as if evening had collapsed early under the weight of gray clouds. Her limbs ached from sweeping the parking lot and hauling freezer crates and enduring Brenda's endless humiliations. But what hurt most was the quiet, the kind of silence that sinks into a home when both exhaustion and fear move in at the same time. Lily was curled on this old couch, wrapped in a mismatched blanket, scrolling through community college forums with that forced optimism she wore whenever she tried to protect Ava from more worry. "You are home late again," Lily said. Eyes lifting with concern she tried to mask as casual curiosity. Ava kicked off her shoes and exhaled slowly. "Long shift," she murmured. "Brenda extended my duties today." Lily frowned. "You look like you have been crying." Ava forced a smile weak at the edges, just tired. But Lily knew better. She sat up, leaning forward. "Did something happen at the store?" Ava hesitated because she hated adding weight onto her sister's already fragile shoulders, but the burden in her chest felt too heavy to carry alone. "Something happened," she admitted. "A man came in today, the man from last night." Lily's eyes widened. The one you gave the $5 to Ava nodded, sinking onto the arm of the couch. "He came in with cameras and assistants. Turns out he is not just some random guy. He is Ethan Cole." Lily's jaw dropped. "The Ethan Cole?" Ava rubbed her forehead. "Apparently." Lily stared at her stunned, then slowly grinned. "Ava. That is huge." That is insane. Why was he there? Ava shook her head, still overwhelmed. He said he wanted to thank me, then everyone in the store acted like I did something wrong. Brenda was furious. Jason, too. It got bad. Lily's expression fell. I am so sorry. Ava felt the pressure finally brim over. We might get evicted in 5 days, she whispered, voice trembling. The notice came this morning. Lily's face drained of color. What? Ava nodded, her throat tightening. And I cannot get more hours. Brenda is cutting them. The silence between them grew thick, heavy, almost suffocating. Lily reached out, squeezing Ava's hand. We will figure it out, she whispered. We always do. But Ava felt the edges of her resolve crumbling. Her chest tightened, breath catching like something inside her was sinking. She stood and walked to the tiny kitchen, pulling out the eviction notice, reading the brutal text for the 10th time. She set it down, then stared at her reflection in the window, the streetlights outside blurring into soft halos around her tired features. She had fought so long for survival, she did not know how to fight for anything else. That was when the knock came hard enough to make both sisters jump. Ava opened the door to find the apartment manager, Mr. Dunn, standing under the flickering hallway light, arms crossed, clipboard in hand. Evening, he said curtly. I need to discuss your outstanding balance. Ava's heart dropped. I know, she whispered. I am trying to get it together. Mr. Dunn shook his head. Trying is not enough. Payment is due now, in cash. Tonight, if possible. Ava froze. Tonight I cannot, she began. But he raised a hand. I am sorry, but building policy does not bend. If it is not handled soon, I will have to proceed with lockout protocol. Lily stepped behind, her voice breaking. Please, sir, we just need a few days. Mr. Dunn sighed, impatient. I am not the enemy, but the rules are the rules. He turned to leave. Ava closed the door and leaned against it, feeling the beginnings of panic rising sharp and cold. She walked to the kitchen counter, flipped her phone over in her shaking hand, and stared at the metallic card she had taken out earlier, the one with Ethan Cole's name engraved bold and simple. She had no business calling someone like him. None. He had money, responsibility, power. She had nothing. Nothing except the $5 she had given him without hesitation. And right now, nothing was collapsing around her. Her fingers trembled as she unlocked her phone. Ava. Do not. Lily said urgently. He is a CEO, Ava. You cannot just call him like you are asking a neighbor for sugar. Ava swallowed hard, eyes burning. Then, what am I supposed to do, Lily? What choice do I have? Lily's lips parted, but no answer came. Ava looked at the card again, her heart pounding so loudly she felt it in her fingertips. She inhaled shakily, then dialed. The phone rang once, twice, then clicked. A voice, deep, calm, familiar, filled her ear. This is Ethan. Ava froze momentarily, the words tangled in her throat. Ethan said again, a soft hint of concern in his tone. Hello, Ava, right? Warmth rushed to her chest at the sound of her name spoken so gently by someone so powerful. How did he know her number instantly? She forced her voice steady. Yes, it is me. I am sorry for calling. I know you are busy, Something happened. Are you safe? He asked immediately, the question sharp with worry. Yes, she whispered. I mean, not exactly. My apartment manager came tonight. We owe rent. We might lose our home. I am sorry. I should not be saying this. I know you do not. Ethan interrupted softly. Ava, breathe. Tell me what you need. The tenderness in his voice cracked something open inside her, a weight she had been carrying alone for far too long. I do not know what to do, she admitted, barely above a whisper. Ethan exhaled through the phone. Long, steady, controlled. Come to Cole Tower tomorrow morning, he said. 10 o'clock. I will meet you in the lobby. No security, no assistance, just me. Ava blinked, stunned. I cannot impose like that. You are not imposing, Ethan said. You helped me when no one else did. Now let me return the humanity. She closed her eyes, letting the words settle into her bones. "Thank you," she whispered, "truly." After they hung up, Ava lowered the phone slowly, as if it were made of glass. Lily stared at her wide-eyed. "What did he say?" Ava took a breath that felt like her first in days. "He wants to help. He asked me to meet him tomorrow." Lily smiled through tears. "Maybe this is it, Ava. Maybe this is the turning point." Ava looked out the window, watching the drizzle glow beneath the street lamp, and for the first time in a long time she felt a quiet flicker inside her. Not hope exactly, but the possibility of it. Ava barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the eviction notice, the humiliation at the store, Jason's sneer, Brenda's cold smile, and then Ethan's voice cutting through all of it like something steady and unreal. "Meet me at Cole Tower tomorrow. No security, no assistance, just me." Those words echoed in her head until dawn painted the Portland sky a muted silver. She dressed carefully, but simply choosing her cleanest jeans and a soft cream sweater, brushing her hair twice before pulling it into a neat ponytail. Lily hovered nervously as Ava tied her shoes. "Text me the moment you get there," Lily said, "and the moment you leave, and the moment you—" Ava laughed softly. "Lily, enough. I will be okay." Her sister bit her lip. "He sounded really kind last night, but he is still a billionaire, Ava. His world eats people like us alive." Ava swallowed. "I know, but he asked me to come." She hugged Lily tightly, then stepped out into the crisp morning air. The bus ride to downtown Portland took 40 minutes, long enough for her anxiety to mount again until her stomach twisted in nerves. She kept checking the metallic card in her bag as if it might disappear. When the bus finally turned onto the street where Cole Tower stood, her breath hitched. She had seen the building in news clips and on local magazines, but nothing prepared her for the sight up close. The skyscraper rose sleek and glassy, reflecting the clouds above, sharp lines of steel and polished windows gleaming like something out of another universe, one she never imagined standing in front of. She stepped off the bus, gripping her bag tightly. People in tailored suits streamed in and out of the revolving doors, their pace quick, purposeful, confident. She felt suddenly small, but she took a breath and walked forward. The lobby doors slid open with a quiet hush, and she stepped into a space so polished and bright it almost hurt her eyes. Marble floors stretched clean, and reflective huge screens played videos of environmental initiatives and global energy conferences. A vertical garden rose 3 stories tall, lush and glowing under soft lights. She stood still, overwhelmed, until a firm voice snapped her back. "Excuse me, miss." She turned. A tall security guard in a crisp uniform approached, his expression stern. "Employees and authorized guests only beyond this point," he said, lifting a hand to stop her from entering farther. "I am here to meet someone," Ava said quietly. The guard raised an eyebrow. "Name of the employee." Ava hesitated. "Ethan said no security, no assistance, just me." She whispered his name. "Ethan Cole." The guard laughed under his breath, shaking his head. "Ma'am, you cannot just walk into Cole Tower claiming you have a meeting with the CEO. Thousands of people say that every month." Ava felt heat rising to her cheeks. "I am not lying," she said softly. "I do not doubt you believe that," the guard replied coldly. "But this area is restricted. Please step back." He moved slightly closer, as if preparing to escort her out, and embarrassment flooded Ava so quickly she felt dizzy. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe last night she had misunderstood everything. Maybe Ethan had said it out of politeness or pity, and she had clung to false hope. Her throat tightened. "I am sorry," she murmured, stepping back 1 foot, retreating toward the exit, and then a voice cut through the lobby like warm thunder. "She is with me." Heads turned. Even the security guard straightened immediately, recognizing the authority woven into those 4 simple words. Ethan descended the mezzanine staircase in a charcoal coat, one hand sliding along the railing, the other tucked casually in his pocket, a presence so commanding the entire lobby seemed to shift around him. He reached them in seconds and gave Ava a small, genuine smile, one that softened the tension strangling her chest. "Apologies," he said to her. "I should have come down earlier." The guard looked mortified. "Sir, I did not realize." Ethan shook his head. "You are doing your job, but for the record, any time she walks in this building, she does not wait. Understood?" "Yes, sir," the guard replied quickly, stepping aside. Ethan gestured gently. "Come on, Ava." She followed him past the security gate, aware of dozens of eyes on them, executives pausing mid-stride, interns whispering, assistants staring as if witnessing something extraordinary. Ethan slowed to match her pace. "I hope the bus ride was okay," he said lightly. She nodded, though her nerves had not yet settled. "I almost left," she confessed. "The guard thought I was making it up." "You did not tell him about our call," Ethan replied. "That is respect, not fear. Most people in my world do not understand the difference." They reached the private elevator at the back of the lobby. Ethan pressed a keycard, and the doors opened with a soft chime. Once inside, he selected the rooftop level. Ava blinked. "The roof?" Ethan smiled. "There is something I want you to see." The elevator began its ascent, smooth and silent. Tive glanced at him, unsure if she should speak, but he beat her to it. "You looked scared in the lobby," he said gently. "You do not need to be. I invited you, and I am glad you came." Her chest warmed at the simple honesty in his voice. When the elevator doors opened, a soft gust of fresh air greeted them. She stepped onto the rooftop garden, a secluded oasis lined with cedar paths and clusters of pines and silver grasses swaying in the cool wind. From here, Portland stretched endlessly, bridges, rivers, and mountains washed in morning light. Ava stared awestruck. "It is beautiful," she whispered. Ethan watched her, not the view. "This is where I come when I need to remember why I built this company," he said. "Not for money, not for power, for moments like last night, for humanity." Ava looked down at her hands. "I do not want charity, Ethan. I do not want to become a story you tell in interviews." Ethan's voice softened. "I am not offering charity, Ava. I am offering opportunity, because someone like you should be seen." Her breath caught. She did not know what he meant yet, or what doors he planned to open, but standing here above the city beside him, she realized one thing clearly. Her life was already changing, and there was no going back. Ava followed Ethan across the rooftop garden, still unsure if she was dreaming or accidentally stepped into someone else's life. The cold breeze carried the scent of pine and city fog, while the entire skyline stretched before them wide and shimmering. Ethan motioned toward a bench near the railing, a quiet spot tucked behind tall grasses. "Sit with me for a moment," he said. She obeyed cautiously, hands folded in her lap, trying not to stare at him too long. He seemed different up here, calmer, almost vulnerable, as if the sky itself softened the sharp edges of power he carried downstairs. "I did not bring you here to overwhelm you," Ethan began. "I brought you because I believe in transparency. You deserve to know what is happening around you." Ava blinked. "Around me," Ethan nodded. "After the video from last night circulated, my communications team started digging. Not into you," he clarified quickly, into the situation. "Why no one helped me, why the store staff stood by, why you stepped forward." Ava looked down, embarrassed. "I did not step forward to get attention." "I know," he said softly. "That is why it mattered." He reached into his coat, pulling out a slim folder and offering it to her. She hesitated, then opened it expecting legal jargon, but instead finding a simple job description printed on 2 pages. "Community Program Coordinator," Ethan explained. "My company is expanding our energy aid program statewide. We need someone who understands people at the ground level, someone who can listen, not just report. Someone with compassion." Ava felt the air leave her lungs. "You want me for this job?" She shook her head, disbelieving. "I do not have a degree. I do not have experience. I restock shelves." Ethan smiled faintly. "And last night you saw a stranger shivering in the rain and gave him your last $5. That tells me more about your character than any resume ever could." Her heart thudded painfully inside her chest. But why me, Ethan? I am nobody. Ethan's jaw flexed as if the word irritated him. You are not nobody. And if you accept this role, you will receive training, a salary, and benefits. Enough stability to keep your home. Enough to give Lily a safer life. Her breath hitched. He knew her sister's name. Ethan noticed her surprise. I did not dig into your private life, he said gently. You mentioned her last night before you panicked and apologized. I simply remembered. Ava looked away, overwhelmed by the way he paid attention, the way he made her feel seen without judgment. But the thought of Brenda and Jason snapped suddenly into her mind like cold water. If she left the store, they would celebrate. But if she took a job connected to Ethan, they would drag her name through every corner of the internet. People will think I manipulated you, she whispered, trembling. People already think that. Ethan's voice softened but remained steady. Which is why I want you to start immediately before rumors define your truth. A sudden sound echoed behind them. The rooftop door swung open and a security officer stepped out looking uneasy. Sir, sorry to interrupt, but someone downstairs is demanding to see Miss Collins. Ava stiffened. Who? Ethan asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. Jason Turner, the guard replied, and a woman named Brenda Peck. They claim Miss Collins stole corporate property and used your name to secure an unauthorized meeting. Ava's stomach dropped. She felt the old familiar mix of humiliation and dread creeping up her spine. They came here, she whispered, to your tower. Ethan stood instantly, shoulders tightening, eyes turning sharp with protective fury. They had no right. He turned to the guard. Keep them downstairs, no access beyond the lobby. Yes, sir. The guard retreated. Ava felt her hands shaking. I am so sorry, she whispered. I told you this would happen. I should not have come. Ethan looked at her, then shook his head firmly. You are not responsible for their insecurity or their smallness. This is not on you. She hugged her arms around herself, suddenly cold. They will ruin me, Ethan. They will say I am trying to get something from you. Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice until the distance between them felt intimate grounding. Let them talk. Let them choke on their own assumptions. Ava's eyes lifted to his, and something inside her chest softened just a little. You do not understand what it is like where I live, she whispered. People judge everything. One wrong rumor, and you lose everything. Ethan nodded slowly. Then let me give you something they cannot take. He reached into the folder and pulled out an offer letter, sliding it gently into her hands. This role is yours, Ava, if you want it. A career, a salary that will pull you out of survival mode, a chance to stand with me, not behind me. She stared at the paper, tears threatening her vision. Why are you doing this? Ethan. Ethan inhaled deeply as if choosing honesty over convenience. Because last night reminded me of who I was before success buried me under meetings and headlines. Because you looked at me and saw a human, not a headline. And because kindness is rare, when it finds you, you protect it. Her breath caught a tremble running through her. Before she could respond, the rooftop door flew open again. This time, 2 assistants rushed out breathless. Sir, the videos from the store have gone viral, one said. It is everywhere. Twitter, TikTok, national blogs. Headlines are calling her the girl who saved the billionaire. And there are rumors Jason and Brenda are planning a live stream at the tower entrance accusing Ava of manipulation. Ethan's eyes darkened dangerously. Get them removed from company property now, and call legal. No one harasses my guests. Ava's heart hammered against her ribs. This is too much. I do not belong in your world. Ethan's voice softened again, anchoring her. You walked into my world the moment you handed me that $5, and you belong here more than people who wear suits pretending to lead. She felt the tears spill, finally quiet but uncontrollable. Ethan stepped closer, not touching her, but offering something steadier than a hand. Choice. Take the job, Ava. Let me open a door for you that has been closed your whole life. Her fingers tightened around the offer letter. For the first time, the thought crossed her mind not in fear, but in possibility. Maybe this job was not a gift. Maybe it was the beginning of a life she had never allowed herself to imagine. Ava held the offer letter with trembling hands as the rooftop wind pressed gently against her sweater, whispering through the pines on the terrace. She tried to focus on the words in front of her, the promise of a salary, the training, the possibility of finally having stability, but her mind kept replaying one horrifying truth. Jason and Brenda were downstairs in Ethan's building, ready to destroy her publicly. Ethan sensed her spiraling. "We should head inside," he said, voice steady, as though trying to anchor her. "I want you to meet a few team members and see the real workspace, not the lobby chaos." Ava nodded weakly, following him to the rooftop elevator. But as soon as the doors opened on the 15th floor, the tension hit her like a wall. Employees clustered in small groups, whispering urgently. Screens flashed headlines. TikTok videos played on mute in loops. Ethan Cole searches for mystery woman. Girl who helped billionaire goes viral. Who is Ava Collins? Everyone looked up as Ethan stepped out. Conversations halted, phones lowered. Then all eyes shifted to the young woman beside him. Ava felt the weight immediately heavy, like judgment pressing into her skin. Ethan ignored the looks and guided her to a glass conference room. A few executives inside straightened quickly, adjusting papers and closing laptop screens. Before Ethan could introduce her, his assistant, Nora, rushed in, pale and breathless. "Sir, we have a situation." Ethan's jaw flexed. Define situation. Nora angled her tablet, revealing an email chain marked urgent. Someone hacked into the Energy Aid Program portal this morning and altered performance data. The reports now show financial mismanagement and oversight failures. It looks like Ava neglected her assigned volunteer files. Ava's heart dropped. "What volunteer files? I do not even work here yet." "Exactly," Nora said, "which is why this is clearly sabotage. But the preliminary board review is happening today, which means the altered data is being used right now." Ethan cursed under his breath, something Ava had not yet heard from him. "Who has admin access to the portal?" Nora hesitated. 2 program managers and 3 interns. But one of the access keys came from a public device, possibly someone connected to a staff member. Ava felt cold understanding fill her. Jason. He must have used her login attempt from earlier when she visited security. He must have guessed or stolen temporary credentials when she filled the visitor form. He had been watching her every step. Ethan read her expression instantly. "Ava? Talk to me." She swallowed hard. "It is Jason. It has to be. He already accused me this morning of trying to manipulate you, and Brenda will say or do anything to drag me down with her." Ethan's eyes hardened like steel. "I believe you." Ava's throat tightened at those 3 simple words. In her life, people rarely believed her feelings, her truth, her perspective. But Ethan's unwavering certainty steadied her pulse. Nora continued reading. "The board wants an explanation. Some are already panicking over the viral videos. They think you are making impulsive decisions, sir." Ethan's expression sharpened even further. "Schedule an emergency meeting in the main conference room and find out exactly how they access the system." Nora nodded and rushed out. Ethan turned back to Ava. "This will be stressful. People will be harsh. Do you want to stay or wait in my office?" Ava's instinct was to hide, to shrink, to disappear. That was what she had always done when the world turned cruel. But something in Ethan's gaze, something steady and demanding of her strength, pushed her forward. "I will stay," she whispered. Ethan gave a small, approving nod. "Then stay beside me." They walked together toward the main conference room, and the moment they entered, chaos erupted. Board members raised voices, analysts pointed at screens, executives whispered accusations half-formed yet heavy with suspicion. Ethan lifted a hand. Silence. The room quieted instantly. He nodded to Nora, who connected her tablet to the large screen. The falsified data appeared showing inconsistent numbers, manipulated forecasts, and missing budget lines, all under Ava's name. A few committee members glared at her. Someone whispered under their breath, "Unbelievable." Ethan stepped forward. These reports were tampered with by an external party with malicious intent. Ava Collins has no system login, no employee status, and no access to this software. Someone altered data to frame her. The CFO frowned. "Do we have proof?" Ethan shot Nora a look. Nora tapped the screen, pulling up a blurred security feed from the lobby computer station. A man used the visitor terminal early this morning. Timestamp matched the first altered file upload. Nora zoomed in. The image sharpened enough to reveal a familiar outline. Jason Turner. Several board members looked shocked. "Who is that?" one asked. Ava swallowed. "He is an employee at the grocery store where I worked, she corrected quietly. He hates me. He thinks Ethan only came because of—" She gestured helplessly at herself. Ethan finished for her. "Because of classism, because some small-minded people cannot believe kindness exists without motive." Ava lowered her gaze firmly, blinking back tears. One board member scoffed. "So, an angry supermarket clerk sabotaged our internal system." Ethan's eyes snapped toward him. "Yes. And you should be more concerned about how he accessed your data than how a grocery store employee became the villain in your imagination." The room went silent. Nora interrupted. "Sir, security just detained Turner and Peck at the entrance. They attempted to live stream from inside the building, claiming Miss Collins is exploiting her connection with you." Ava's heart dropped again. Ethan's voice turned ice cold. "Have them removed, permanently banned from the property, and send them a cease and desist." Ava felt her breath catch as the weight of everything, her life, her reputation, her fear, crushed down at once. Her knees trembled slightly. Ethan noticed instantly, stepping closer without touching but grounding her with his presence. "I know this is overwhelming," he murmured, "but listen to me. You are not at fault. You are not weak. You did not cause this. They did." She inhaled shakily. "I just wanted to help someone last night, and now everything is on fire." Ethan's voice softened. "Sometimes kindness exposes ugliness. Sometimes it brings truth to the surface. Sometimes it starts wars. But you did nothing wrong." The meeting wrapped with orders for an immediate investigation and a complete reversal of the falsified data. When the room finally cleared, Ethan and Ava remained standing side by side, the storm briefly settling. She whispered, "I think my life is falling apart, Ethan." He looked at her with something quiet and earnest. "Or falling into place." The office floor was nearly empty by the time Ethan finished handling the last of the crisis calls. Most employees had gone home hours ago, leaving only the hum of ventilation and the glow of dimmed evening lights stretching across polished floors. Outside the glass walls, Portland shimmered under a thin layer of mist, the city quieting into night. Ava stood near the window, arms wrapped around herself, watching headlights drift like slow fireflies below. The exhaustion in her body was deep, bone deep, like she had carried the weight of the entire day inside her ribs. She heard Ethan approach before he spoke, footsteps unhurried, softer than usual. "You should eat something," he said gently. "You have not eaten since morning." Ava shook her head. "I am not hungry." He stepped beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth from his suit jacket. "Ava," he murmured, using her name like it mattered. "You have been thrown into a storm you did not ask for, and you stood through all of it. That counts for something." She let out a trembling breath. "People think I did something wrong. They think I wanted attention, that I am using you." Ethan's jaw flexed with anger he had tried to conceal all afternoon. People assume the worst because it is easier than admitting they were wrong, or that a stranger's kindness humbles them. Ava turned to him slowly. "I am scared. I do not know what tomorrow looks like. Everything feels unsafe." Ethan met her gaze, holding it with an intensity that steadied her pulse. "Then, stay here a little longer," he said. "Work with me tonight. Let me show you the program. Let me show you why I want you on this team." She hesitated, then nodded. So they sat side by side at a long conference table lit only by a desk lamp Ethan had pulled over. He opened documents, spreadsheets, handwritten notes, graphs. But instead of speaking like a CEO, he spoke like a person revealing the pieces of a dream. "My mom used to heat our house with wood she gathered from construction sites," Ethan said quietly. "Winters were rough. My father left when I was 12. We survived on neighbors and warm meals from churches." He tapped a map showing low-income energy zones. "This program matters to me because I grew up needing it. I built coal energy tech so families like mine would not freeze or drown in bills." Ava watched him. Not the documents, her heart softening with every word. She had only seen Ethan through headlines and viral clips and the impossible shine of his entrance at the store. But here in the lamplight he looked human, unguarded, layered with stories he did not share with many people. She found herself telling him things she had kept locked away, too. "My mother got sick when I was 16, she whispered. "We could not afford the treatments, so I left school to work full-time. Lily was still a kid. I promised her I would keep us together no matter what." Ethan listened, not interrupting, not judging. When she finished, he said softly, "You have been carrying a world on your shoulders alone. Let someone help you." Her eyes stung. "I cannot be someone's burden, Ethan." His expression shifted, something raw flickering across it. "You are not a burden, Ava. You are the reason this company remembers its purpose." The air changed between them, quiet but charged, like something delicate had been placed on the table between their hearts. Ava looked down at their hands resting on the table only inches apart. The closeness felt dangerous but comforting too. Ethan leaned back slightly as if forcing himself to maintain a respectful distance, but his voice stayed soft. "You do not have to pretend to be strong all the time. Not with me." She swallowed hard. "I do not know how not to pretend." "Then we can be ourselves for one night," he said. "No roles, no fear, no expectations. Just two tired people trying to make sense of a day that felt impossible." Ava exhaled a shaky breath. "Yes, I would like that." They worked for hours, side by side, reviewing project lists, calling community organizers, checking numbers, correcting the files Jason had sabotaged. At some point, Ava's head drooped forward and she rubbed her eyes, the exhaustion threatening to pull her under. Ethan noticed instantly. "Ava, take a break." She shook her head, stubborn, even in fatigue. "I need to finish this. I need to prove I deserve the job." Ethan reached out, stopping her hand before she reopened the folder. His touch was light, tentative, almost questioning. Ava froze, breath catching as warmth traveled up her arm. His voice dropped lower, almost a whisper. "You already proved it. You proved it last night in the rain. You proved it this morning when you walked into a building that tried to reject you. You proved it today when the whole world turned on you and you still stood tall." Ava's eyes lifted slowly, meeting his. They were too close. Close enough that she could see the faint gold flecks in his irises, feel the quiet pulse of his breath, see the tiredness beneath his carefully controlled expression. Something unspoken passed between them. Something fragile and dangerous and irresistible. Ethan moved his hand back gently, not breaking the moment but respecting it. "I do not want you to think I expect anything," he murmured. "I just want you to feel safe." The room felt warmer, suddenly lit by more than the desk lamp. Ava swallowed. "I do feel safe with you." A silence wrapped around them, soft like a blanket. Ethan broke it with a small, tired laugh. "I think this is the first time in weeks I have actually been able to breathe." "Me too," she whispered. They could have stayed like that forever, suspended in quiet, unguarded truth, but the clock on the wall ticked softly, reminding them the night was slipping away. Ethan stood stretching a little. "It is almost 2 a.m. Let me drive you home." Ava shook her head. "I can take the bus." "It is late," Ethan replied firmly but gently, "and you have had enough unsafe moments for one lifetime." She hesitated, then nodded, trusting him more than she trusted her own exhaustion. As they rode down the elevator in silence, Ava felt something shift inside her. Something subtle, yet irreversible. They had stopped pretending. And whatever waited next was no longer just kindness or gratitude or coincidence. It was a connection neither of them planned for, but both of them felt. The next morning arrived far too quickly. Ava had slept barely 3 hours after Ethan drove her home, insisting she text him once she was safely inside. She had done so with trembling hands, still replaying the quiet intensity of the night they had shared, the way his voice softened only for her, the way their hands nearly touched, and how for the first time in years she felt seen. But morning light brought a different kind of heaviness, consequences, chaos, and the unavoidable storm that awaited at Cole Tower. When she stepped off the bus, she immediately noticed a crowd gathered outside the skyscraper. Reporters with microphones, TikTok creators live streaming, curious bystanders craning their necks toward the entrance. Ethan's security team formed a barricade, but the noise rose in frantic waves. Questions flew at her the instant she crossed the street. Are you the $5 girl? Did the billionaire fall in love with you? Are you manipulating him? Is it true you caused the financial discrepancies? Ava froze, pulse racing. She tried to move through the chaos, but a reporter pushed forward, shoving a microphone toward her chin. Miss Collins, sources claim the CEO is risking a public scandal because of you. What do you say to accusations that you emotionally exploited him? Her breath stuttered painfully. Before she could answer, a familiar voice cut through the noise like a blade. Step back. Now. Ethan strode from the entrance, surrounded by security, but every barrier fell away when his gaze locked onto Ava. His expression softened, instantly shifting from CEO fury to quiet protectiveness. You should not have had to walk through that, he said as he reached her. Come on. She followed him into the building, grateful for the calm of the lobby, but her chest still trembled from the barrage outside. When the elevator doors closed, Ethan spoke low voice, steady. The board insists on a full public briefing to clear the program's name. They want numbers, proof, transparency. He looked at her carefully. And they asked that you join. Ava blinked in shock. Me, Ethan nodded. They want the woman at the center of the viral storm to address the truth directly. But only if you are willing, you are not obligated. Ava inhaled slowly, fighting the instinct to back away from attention. But something in her had shifted last night, something that remembered strength she had forgotten she had. I will do it, she whispered. Ethan's eyes softened with pride. Then, let's show them the truth. The press conference was already set in the grand auditorium, a massive room with tiered seating and blinding lights. Rows of cameras faced the stage reporters, filling every chair. Ethan stepped forward first to an eruption of flashes and murmurs. He raised a hand, calling for silence. Yesterday, misinformation spread across the internet involving my company and an innocent woman. Today, we correct it. He gestured for Nora, who displayed a large screen behind them. Security footage played showing Jason altering the data logs, then attempting to blame Ava publicly. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Nora switched to the corrected financial records showing the true integrity of the energy aid program. Ethan continued firmly. There was no mismanagement, no exploitation, no misconduct, only malicious sabotage by an individual who has already been detained. A reporter shouted, but why was he targeting her? Ethan didn't hesitate. Because she offered kindness to someone he believed was beneath her, and some people cannot stand to see compassion rewarded. The crowd murmured louder. Then Ethan did something no one expected. He turned toward Ava, extending a hand, inviting her to stand beside him. Every camera focused on her instantly, her heart pounding so hard she feared her voice would crack. But when she stepped forward and felt Ethan's presence just inches away, grounding her, the panic receded enough for her to speak. I am not special, she began, voice trembling at first. I am not wealthy. I am not powerful. I stock shelves at a grocery store. Her voice strengthened. But last night, I saw a man in the rain who looked cold and alone and lost. I did not know he was a CEO. I did not know cameras would capture it. I did not know the world would judge me for it. She paused, meeting the eyes of the room. I only knew he needed help, and that was enough. Silence fell. Every microphone leaned forward. Every reporter froze. Ava swallowed and continued. Kindness should not make you a target. Doing the right thing should not ruin your life. Her voice shook, but did not break. But if I had to choose again, I would still give that $5, even knowing all this would happen. A wave of applause began hesitantly from one corner of the auditorium, growing until the entire room erupted in claps and cheers. Ethan looked at her with something deep, something almost reverent. A reporter shouted, "Miss Collins, what do you want now that the truth is out?" Ava opened her mouth, but Ethan spoke first. Voice gentle yet clear. What she deserves. A chance. Her cheeks warmed as dozens of flashes burst at once. The applause grew louder. Loud enough to drown out every rumor and every cruel whisper that had nearly broken her. When the conference ended and cameras lowered, Ethan leaned in close, speaking so only she could hear. "You were extraordinary." Ava's breath trembled. My whole body was shaking. Ethan gave a small smile. "I saw. And still you stood." She looked at him, really looked, and saw not the billionaire nor the CEO nor the public figure, but the man. And it scared her how deeply she felt that recognition. He offered his arm. "Come with me. We are not done yet." 6 months later, Portland had traded its winter gray for a gentle spring brightness, the kind that softened the edges of the city and made everything feel newly washed clean. Cherry blossoms curved over sidewalks like pale pink clouds, and morning light spilled through the tall windows of the Energy Aid Community Center, where Ava now stood reviewing a list of upcoming outreach events. The center buzzed with volunteers, local families, and community partners, all preparing for the biggest initiative Coal Energy Tech had ever launched, a statewide program providing subsidized home energy systems for low-income neighborhoods. And, at the heart of it all, Ava Collins. She moved through the room with quiet confidence, greeting volunteers, answering questions, and updating charts on the wall. People recognized her now, not from the viral clip of the girl who gave a billionaire $5, but from months of consistent work visits to rural towns, late-night calls advocating for families in crisis, and her unwavering commitment to kindness with structure, dignity, and impact. Every time she heard her name spoken, she still flinched slightly. Humbled by the attention, but she no longer shrank. She had earned her place here, and she loved the work. Lily sat at a table on the side reviewing community college enrollment forms. Whenever Ava glanced over, Lily flashed an encouraging grin, proud in a way that made Ava's throat tighten each time. Life was not perfect, but it was finally stable. Rent was paid, health was improving, and hope felt possible in a way it had never been before. A knock on the center's glass door drew Ava's attention. The volunteers parted instinctively, making room as Ethan stepped inside, removing his sunglasses and offering the room his understated, polite smile. Conversations lowered, not because he demanded attention, but because his presence carried weight, calm leadership, and something undeniably magnetic. Ava felt her pulse respond before she could control it. Ethan walked toward her, bypassing several people trying to greet him, his focus fixed entirely on her. "Morning," he said, voice warm enough to melt every ounce of tension from her shoulders. "Morning," she whispered, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. He took in her clipboard, thorough notes, coffee mug, and the determined crease of concentration between her brows. "You have not eaten yet, have you?" he asked, more a statement than a question. Ava rolled her eyes but smiled. "I was going to after this meeting." Ethan shook his head, amused. "You always say that." She lifted her chin playfully. "And I always get the job done." "Yes," he murmured, eyes softening. "That is what worries me." The air between them warmed, stretched, pulled tighter by something unspoken but increasingly impossible to ignore. 6 months of working side by side, traveling to community conferences, reviewing budgets until midnight, talking about childhoods, dreams, failures, healing. They had built something steady, something rooted in respect, caution, and a slow burn connection that neither dared rush. But it was there, threaded between their conversations, their silences, their glances that lingered slightly too long. Ethan cleared his throat, breaking the moment. "I came because there is someone here to see you, someone who wanted to thank you personally." Ava frowned confused until Ethan stepped aside and revealed an elderly woman with silver hair and a cane. Ava gasped, recognizing her instantly. The woman from the bus stop the night everything began. The one who watched from the bench as Ava handed the stranger her last $5. The woman smiled warmly. "I saw you on the news, dear. I have been wanting to come for months." Ava hurried to take the woman's hands gently. "I never forgot you. You were the only one who looked like you cared." The elderly woman laughed softly. "Oh, honey, I cared plenty. My hips just do not let me move fast anymore. But I saw your kindness that night. I saw what it cost you, and I saw what it gave him." Her gaze drifted to Ethan, who dipped his head respectfully. The woman squeezed Ava's hands. It mattered. "Do not forget that." Ava felt tears prick her eyes, grateful, overwhelmed. "Thank you," she whispered. After the woman left, Ava turned to Ethan, who watched her with pride so open it almost felt intimate. She exhaled a shaky laugh. "I still cannot believe any of this is real." Ethan's voice lowered. "I can. You built this. You earned this." Ava looked away, heart pounding. "I could not have done it alone." "Maybe not," he said softly. "But you were the spark." She felt the truth of that settle deep inside her. A volunteer called her name, pulling her briefly into a discussion about upcoming installations. She resolved an issue swiftly and returned to Ethan, who leaned against the wall, hands in his pockets, watching her with quiet admiration. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yes. Actually, no. Not quite." Ethan straightened fully, and for the first time she saw nervousness flicker across his usually composed expression. "Can you walk with me?" A flutter of uncertainty hit her stomach. "Where to someplace familiar," he said. "You will see." They stepped outside into the breezy spring morning, walking side by side down the sidewalk, passing food carts and coffee stands until they reached a familiar intersection. Ava slowed. "You are not taking me to—" Ethan gave a small smile. "Am? The bus stop. The exact spot where Ava had handed him her last $5 on that cold, unforgettable night. The bench still creaked the same way when a breeze brushed it. The street lamp still flickered erratically, and the world looked unchanged, but Ava felt entirely different. Ethan walked toward the shelter, then turned facing her. Ava swallowed, nerves flaring. "Why are we here?" Ethan reached inside his coat and pulled out a small wooden frame. He held it gently for a moment, then offered it to her. She accepted it with trembling hands. Inside the frame, pressed behind the glass, was the same $5 bill she had given him months ago, worn edges water-stained from the rain that night. Ava covered her mouth, tears blurring her vision. Ethan spoke softly. "This was never about money. This was the moment I realized there was still real goodness in the world. And it came from you." Her heart thudded painfully, emotions swirling too fast to name. Ethan took a slow breath as if steadying himself. "Ava, I have been careful. Too careful, maybe. I did not want you to feel pressured. I did not want to blur lines. I did not want to take advantage of a moment that changed both our lives." Ava's throat tightened. Ethan stepped closer, voice low, steady but vulnerable. But somewhere between rebuilding the program, traveling together, eating late-night takeout, fixing spreadsheets, and listening to you laugh in the car at 2 a.m, something happened. Something I cannot ignore anymore. Her breath caught. Ethan continued, his eyes unwavering. "I do not want to stand beside you only as your boss or your partner in this work. I want to stand beside you in your life, if that is something you want too." Ava felt her world tilt, not in fear this time, but in the staggering rush of truth. She had known. She had felt it growing in the spaces between their days, in the looks he tried to hide in the late-night conversations that stretched long after the work ended. She lowered her gaze, tears shimmering. "Ethan, if I say yes, everything changes. People will talk. They already do, I know," he said, "and I'm ready for that. Are you?" Ava inhaled deeply. She thought of Lily, safe, hopeful, planning her classes. She thought of the eviction notice that once threatened everything. She thought of Brenda Jason, the reporters, the humiliation. And then she thought of Ethan in the rain, the boy he once was, the man he had become, the steady warmth he offered her without forcing, without rushing, without expecting. "Yes," she whispered before she lost her courage. Ethan's breath left him quietly as if he had been holding it for months. He stepped closer, slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, Ethan lifted a hesitant hand, brushing his fingers against hers. Their hands intertwined naturally like they had always been meant to find each other. Ava felt her heart lift for the first time, not from hope or survival, but from something brighter, belonging. Ethan lowered his forehead to hers, voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you for $5. That changed my entire life." She laughed softly through tears. "Thank you for coming back the next morning." They stood together under the flickering street lamp at the bus stop, where everything began. Their hands entwined, their breaths mingling in the cool spring air as Portland moved quietly around them. It was not a fairy tale. It was not perfect. But it was real. It was theirs. And it was enough, if you are still here listening to the very last moments of Ava and Ethan's journey. Then I want you to take a deep breath, because stories like this one are never just stories. They are reminders. Reminders that the smallest act of kindness can shift the entire direction of a life. Reminders that you never really know whose path you are stepping into, or how your own quiet goodness might echo farther than you imagine. And if this story reached you today, maybe it did so because some part of you needed to believe that good people still exist in a world that feels far too loud, far too cruel, and far too fast. So let me ask you something from the heart. Tell me in the comments where you are listening from. I love seeing people from all over the United States, from small towns in Texas and mountain cabins in Montana to the busy streets of New York and the warm beaches of Florida. Or maybe you are listening from somewhere far beyond. Wherever you are, I want you to know that your presence here, your time, your attention means more to this channel than you could ever imagine. And now, I want to hear from you. Tell me what part of this story hit you the hardest. Was it the moment Ava offered her last $5, the moment Ethan walked into the grocery store and made the world stop the humiliation she endured the night they worked until 2 in the morning, or the way he handed her the framed bill at the bus stop? Tell me what broke your heart. Tell me what healed it. And while you are down there in the comments, answer me this one honest question. Do you believe one act of kindness can change a life? Yes or no? No overthinking, just your truth. Oh, I also want to thank every single one of you who has subscribed and helped this channel grow into a place where love, dignity, second chances, and emotional healing mean something. If you want more stories like this, more billionaire romances, more slow burn tenderness, more tales about ordinary people whose extraordinary hearts change everything, then make sure you tap subscribe and turn on the little bell so you never miss when the next story drops. And if you are new here, welcome to the family. This channel is a safe place, a warm place, a place where you can sit, breathe, listen, and let yourself feel something again. Maybe you see a little of yourself in Ava, someone fighting quietly, someone trying so hard to hold their world together. Or maybe you see Ethan, someone who has everything but still aches in the quiet hours, still searching for a reason to believe again. Whoever you are, know this. Your story is still being written. And if you made it this far into mine, maybe that is your sign not to give up yet. So before you scroll on, before life sweeps you back into the noise, do one last thing for me. Drop a single emoji in the comments that represents how this story made you feel. A heart, a broken heart, a fire, a teardrop, a light bulb, anything. That is your stamp on this moment, your way of saying, I was here. And until the next story, until the next impossible romance, until the next moment where kindness becomes destiny, thank you for listening. Thank you for feeling. Thank you for believing that love can still change a life. Because it can. It always can.